When I was 19 years old, I moved to Southern California. And I moved here. I knew one person in the entire state, and I slept on his couch. And yeah, anyway, he gave me an opportunity to try my hand out here. I got a job working at Knott's Berry Farm, which when I was told, hey, you should apply at Knott's Berry Farm, I was like, why the fuck would I move from Texas to California to work in a berry farm? Well, I didn't know. I'd never heard of it. It's an amusement park. And that amusement park has, shows, like everyday shows that they run, and they do special events and stuff. And that's what I was used to doing was live performance shows, theater shows, and special events. I was a technician, and they hired me to give here's the spiel I used forever, which was I provide audio and lighting support for live shows and special events. And I also did other stuff. I learned pyrotechnic. Well, I knew some pyrotechnics when I was there. It was fireworks. I also did like special effects kind of stuff, fog and anyway. And then I went into carpentry, and I was a technical director. I was there for quite a while, throughout my 20s. It was a great first job to have at that point in my life. It was so much fun. I got into middle management pretty quickly. It only took a few years, 2, 3 years, 4 years. I was a middle manager. Basically, I was running shifts, and I had 2 bosses, and they drove me fucking crazy. They were the combination of micromanager / don't actually know what the fuck they're doing managers. And that's the worst kind of bosses to have. Somebody who's constantly telling you how to do things wrong. And that was my deal. And so I was having to listen to these guys and do things that were just dumb. And it was frustrating and awful. And we had this giant warehouse where we kept all of our lighting gear and like our seasonal props and things like that. Stuff that would go out for Christmas was stored there when it wasn't Christmas. Stuff that would go out for Easter or Halloween. All these things were stored in this one giant warehouse. And they had lighting gear out there, and they had audio gear out there. And the audio guys were always out there, like working on speakers and stuff and making sure that the next special event would be ready to go. And they'd always be just playing music. So I would go out to the warehouse when my bosses pissed me off, and I would sweep. I just picked up the push broom and I swept. And I swept and I swept and I swept until the whole warehouse was clean. And every time I did it, the audio guys knew that I was, upset at my bosses, which is normal. And that I came out there, I took off my dress shirt and would just be there in my, I wore an undershirt for the record, just be there in my t-shirt, my slacks, sweeping. And I would do it, until I was done. It'd usually take half an hour. I mean, it was me checking out. And sometimes when you're frustrated and angry, that's all you got. Is you just resort to what brings you comfort. Sometimes it's just sweeping up a warehouse. Sometimes it's cleaning your kitchen. So I'm doing a lot of that today, and I have been this week. And now I'm going to cut a pod about that. And let's do this. Going to be another one of those unedited ones that people become really fond of. I'm going to tackle this podcast in 3 steps. Okay. I'm going to tackle it in how I feel and how the people around me feel and what that means to us. And then I'm going to talk about what happened. And finally, I'm going to talk about what's next. So 3 parts. So part 1, how do I feel? So first, we'll say what happened. The people of this country, the United States of America, spoke. And we'll get into what they said in depth, well, not in depth, but a little bit of depth later. But what they said was they wanted Donald Trump to be in charge of the country and that they didn't trust the Democrats basically across the board. So As everybody who listens to this pod knows, I'm very anti-Trump. It could be why I'm not particularly popular. I'm not pro-Trump. I see him as a danger, and his style of politics is a tremendous danger to the country, to the planet, and it is what it is. So this was very, very disheartening. If you've been listening to this pod, you know that I've tried to explain the dangers. I've tried to explain the positives of trying to, fix the system and the limitations of the system. But America spoke, and what they said was, we're going to go super right wing. And so we'll talk about what all that means later. But how do we feel today? I feel terrible. And this is Thursday. The election happened Tuesday night, and it was about 8 o'clock when it dawned on me that the feeling that I was having in my stomach was exactly like 2016. We underestimated some stuff, which is the Democratic way. And I got that pit in my stomach, and it just got worse and worse. And I liken the feeling that you get to a breakup. And we don't do this a lot when we get older. I'm 50 and I haven't broken up with anybody since my second divorce. And that was pretty bad. It was real bad. And I felt terrible. And your body doesn't handle that stress well. And you feel heartbreak. You feel depression. You feel anxiety. You feel like the unknown that you're terrified of is more possible now than it was, Monday morning. Everything that could have gone wrong on Tuesday did. It did. 15 million Democrats from 2020 didn't show up to vote this time. They didn't show up, and that's what cost her. Donald Trump didn't improve over his 2020 numbers. He actually went down a little bit. They're saying, this is a mandate. He improved all these places. No, he didn't. The Democrats just didn't show up. And that's very frustrating because it's not what we wanted to happen. It's not what we envisioned happening. We were the forces of good trying to, take the ring to Mount Doom. And it turns out Sauron, captured Frodo and ate him and got his ring. And here we are with this sick feeling. And we're walking around wondering what to do. What do I do? My wife and I have already deleted, I deleted Twitter last night. I've been on Twitter for over 10 years. I deleted it last night because I just can't. It's a right-wing cesspool now, for the record. Trolls, bots. Yesterday morning, I had somebody comment on a picture that I took. That I didn't. My daughter took it of me wearing my Harris Walsh shirt, and I said attached to it was, this picture was taken by my daughter, and I fight for her, and I want her to have a good future, and vote for your kids because it's the most important thing. That was the whole post. It was very positive. It was a really nice, uplifting thing for me. But I had some right-wing troll tell me that my kids had a shitty father and that I'm a beta cuck, and that maybe they can learn from my mistakes. I'm not okay with this, man. That's not okay. It's not okay. I would never say anything any remotely like that to anyone. It's just not in me. And this is a person that doesn't know me, doesn't have any idea who the fuck I am, doesn't know who my kids are. And that was the bridge that I said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not. I'm better than this. I don't need this in my life. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life. If that kind of negativity exists around you, get rid of it. Cut it out. But that shook me, man. I was upset. I would do anything for my kids. I would move the world for my kids. And they love me, and they look up to me, and they listen, and they're good friends to their friends. They're good neighbors to their neighbors. That's what you should be shooting for as an adult with kids. And I got to listen to this guy tell me I'm a beta cuck. You know what? I got to move on. Because it's not... See, this is a part of how I feel. See, the problem is the cruelty is the point. Okay, they're cruel on purpose. The instant that they won, they started saying, yeah, Project 2025, that thing that we're not going to do, that they promised for months, that Trump had nothing to do with it, they admitted it. It was the plan the whole time. Their plan is to break it all. And it's like seeing something that I believe in is about to be destroyed by a bunch of men, white men, rich men, bigots and misogynists. They're going to break the future for my kids. And that's heartbreaking shit. And if you don't feel that, then you're not fucking paying attention. And a lot of people in this country aren't paying attention. And you know what? I shouldn't badmouth you for not paying attention because it's a shit. This is a shitty situation and you don't want to pay attention to it. You want to clean your kitchen. You want to sweep the warehouse. You don't want to fucking deal with this. You don't want to talk about this. This stuff is beyond your control, right? So you're upset. You're brokenhearted. This is what it's like. And it takes time to get over that. And for now, our bodies are still reeling from all of that stress we just put them under. And so, like my Aura ring told me, bro, chill the fuck out. You are in a bad way. And I didn't even think Aura rings could say that. We've got to do a lot of stuff. But the first thing we have to do is figure out how to feel better. Just individually. My friends, I don't have really any family left. My friends and the little family that I live with, we all feel the same way. We're brokenhearted. We're disappointed. And it hurts. And we're unsure about what comes next. And all of that is perfectly normal. That is a normal way to feel. And if you've got the balls to call me a beta cuck to my face, bring it. I'm a pacifist. But you're going to hear it, man. You're going to fucking hear it. So that's how I feel. And I knew that I wanted to do this in 3 sections because I'm going to have to take a break just to get my head right before I go on to the next thing, which is what happened. So you won't notice it, but I'm going to take a 5 here, maybe 10. All right. So you breathe through the pain, you breathe through the anger, and you get back up. That's what I do. So what happened? Why did it happen? There's going to be a lot of postmortems done. There's going to be a lot of, disassembling. How did this happen? And what is it? Blah, 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 blah. Worldwide, inflation has been completely out of whack thanks to hopefully once in a lifetime pandemic. Inflationary pressures have collapsed economies all over the world. And incumbent leaders have paid the price for that. Basically, there's this vicious call for change over systems that actually kind of can't be changed. We've talked about this before. Everything's more expensive now because that's how economies work. Prices go up. They never actually go down. When you work in a supply and demand system, and supplies get choked off, demand spikes, prices spike, and then once companies get used to seeing that big time return on investment, that they see, hey, I used to charge $5 for this thing that now I have to charge $10 for to make the same amount of money, maybe a little bit more. Well, once the supply lines are fixed and you could go back to selling it for $5, they don't. They leave it at 10, or maybe they get magnanimous and drop it by $1. And that hasn't happened yet. And I know that people are frustrated about that. I am too. Inflation's fucking annoying because once the inflationary pressure is relieved, in theory, ethical companies would go back to just making the same amount of money that they were, but that's not the way it works. So, inflation has been costing incumbents everywhere. It was a big fucking deal that Macron was able to hold on in France by changing a coalition. We could talk about this later, but he changed it. They basically aligned everybody against the alt-right who looked like it was going to win because you only need a plurality. And they all got together and they all voted together and they all worked together to make sure that their alliance stopped the alt-right from taking over. And it worked. In the UK, the Labour Party, which has been out of power for what feels like forever, finally took control over the Conservatives because the backlash in the UK was against the Conservative Party that was in charge. This has been happening everywhere. Incumbents are getting their asses kicked because the people want change. And that's what happened here. Kamala Harris is not Joe Biden. We have handled the inflationary pressures better than any other major nation on earth by a damn sight. Literally, foreign newspapers and magazines are saying the U.S. economy is the best in the world right now, but we don't see it because we still see the inflationary pricing. Wages have gone up in this country for the first time in decades. Real wages have outpaced inflation for the first time in ages. And that's huge. Workers today are making more than they ever have, but you don't really see the benefits of it because inflation has been really high, especially in the world around housing costs and anything major that you have to buy. And healthcare is completely fucking out of control. We had backlash against an incumbent Democratic Party who wasn't really the full party, the fully in charge. The Republicans have controlled the House for the last 2 years because if they hadn't, we would have gotten a lot more shit done and a lot of good things would have happened. But Mike Johnson being in charge of the House basically means you can't pass laws because there's no cooperation. And that is just heartbreaking. Conservatives want to change things by not allowing things to happen. And that's really, really easy to do in the United States. In order to pass laws, you have to have cooperation, or you have to be able to overcome all of these obstacles to get consolidated power so you can do big things like infrastructure bills, which the Democrats did in the first 2 years of the Biden administration. They were able to rescue us from the aftermath of the pandemic. They were able to get shots in arms and inoculate us against COVID from continuing to kill people. 1 million Americans lost their lives during COVID. 1 million people. Almost all of us know someone who died or someone who had a loved one die. I've had 2 friends lose their parents to COVID. It was a real horror show, and we've already blanked it out of our minds that the Trump administration handled it about as poorly as they could have. They didn't advocate for social distancing. They didn't advocate for mask usage. They didn't properly distribute medical supplies. They didn't get testing out when it needed to be gotten out. They left everything to the states. And some states did it really well, and other states did it really poorly. And bad shit happened. And we've already blocked it out of our brain because, just like any other traumatic experience, you don't want to continue to live in it. So you block it out. So anyway, what happened? Trump didn't do better than he did in 2020. Democrats did worse. I mentioned that before. 15 million people just didn't do what they did last time, which was vote for the Dem. So Democrats not voting, I can't explain that. I can't do it. It just doesn't make any damn sense. But they didn't, and they didn't in a lot of places. I don't think that the enthusiasm basically the door knockers and the people who are organizing and the activists arm of the party was absolutely jacked to vote in this bad boy. And they did. That part did. But it's the run-of-the-mill people. It's the people who don't pay attention to politics usually. Everybody was paying attention in 2020. Everybody was paying attention in 2020 because you didn't have anything else to do. You had to pay attention because you had to know whether or not you were going to die if you went out your front door and contracted COVID. Sorry for laughing. But we didn't know. So we were counting on people to tell us the truth. Trump was so fucking bad at it. We were like, Mayor Cuomo or Governor Cuomo in New York, he's the guy who seems to have his thumb on the pulse. That guy was a wacko too. But at least he was telling us the truth, being honest with us. We had Donald Trump up there telling us to inject bleach into our veins. Or maybe there's a way to get light inside of you. What the fuck? Anyway, we forgot all that. We memory hold all that. And what we saw was a bunch of people in pain, angry at a broken system. And that's what it boils down to. The system is busted already. There are millions of people all over this country that are hurting. You could say that about every country. There are millions of people that are hurting who don't think that the government, that the system that they're living in helps them at all. They don't believe it. They don't see the real benefit of it, and they don't believe it. I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma in the 80s, and I moved to Texas in the 90s, and then ultimately moved to Southern California in the mid-90s, and I've been here ever since. With the one exception of 2014, when I moved home, actually twice. I moved home briefly to Oklahoma to stay with my grandparents and take care of them in the aftermath of 9/11. I was really heartbroken and needed a reset. And so I spent time with them, and that was important to me. And ended up being really important because a couple of years later, my grandfather would die. And a few years after that, my grandmother would die. And that time that I got to spend with them really solidified all of the memories that I needed to have to carry with me forever. So I selfishly did that. And then in 2014, I moved back because my mom was like, you could do this. The job market in California was hammered. I had just lost my job and been blackballed from the industry that I was in. So I couldn't get a job in the same thing that I'd been doing. So things were not good for me in 2014. So we took a chance and we went to Oklahoma, my wife, my newborn, and I worked at a newspaper as an advertising director. And it was horrifying. It was horrible. The town that I grew up in had declined so amazingly, so terrifyingly. I've seen it with my own eyes. I have seen all of these small businesses struggling to stay alive while the Walmart is bustling like it's Grand Central Station. I talked to those business owners. I talked to those people on the street. I tried to get them to advertise in my newspaper. I tried to get regular people just to buy the newspaper again. we became, how do I phrase this? It was depressing. It was a depressing year. It was so hard. And it was really hard because I was around my family who were still alive at the time. I guess my sister and her kids are still there. But they're broken. Their city is destroyed. Decades of don't tax, don't spend government has left them broke. The rich people are still rich, and the poor people are even more poor. And I can only imagine how bad it is right now in those cities like Duncan, Oklahoma, where I was living, where inflation probably hurts 10 times more than it does, in big places like California, where at least, the job market is robust and you get good wages. We forgot that pain doesn't care it doesn't care about logic. Pain is just pain. And when you go through, here's why you're feeling pain logically, they don't look at you and go, yeah, I understand that. They don't care. And that's what we just learned. That there's tons of people in this country that are crying out. When we talk about the 71 million people who voted for Donald Trump, they're not all like the dude who called me beta cuck, worthless trash, and insulted my parenting. They aren't all like the people that are on Twitter. They aren't all the people who fly the flags and go to the rallies. That might be 20, 25% of them. Maybe more, 30. But the majority of those people who voted for Trump are just people who are hurting and who want the system to work for them. Now, I've got bad news for them. The people who promised that they were going to do that, they're not going to do that. They are not going to make it work for you. They are going to make it work for the richest among us. And the oligarchy is entrenched. And what's happening next, which we're going to cover in the last segment, is going to be ugly. Sorry. God, I'm sorry. But the people who are in pain, I understand this. I got back into following politics really hard. Like, I was into the Obama run in 2008. It was great. Hope and change. W was a fucking disaster. Obama was a good president, and the Affordable Care Act was a transformative piece of legislation, which is now in trouble again. Fuck. That's real. That's real frustration, and that was a real-time realization of something. So congratulations. I guess you got to hear it too. The people who are in pain think that things are about to get better. But if they initiate these plans, tariffs, mass deportations, inflation is going to come back. It's going to be really bad. Elon Musk is going to try to cut $2 trillion out of the budget. I got news for you, man. The only places that's going to come from are the military. Good luck with that. Or the social safety net. And that's after they demolish every government agency that's attempting to help us. From the EPA, who protects our water, to the IRS, who chases down tax cheats, to NOAA, who tells us that storms are approaching. It's all going to be privatized. And we're going to have to pay for information. Those people who are in pain are going to get into worse pain because they are going to break the system. They're going to change the system. They're going to change it for the worse. And that's what happened. People who were in pain decided they wanted to vote to end that pain. Well, not realizing that it was basically like the difference between standing in the cold or jumping off a cliff into icy water. You were better off standing in the bitter cold. But I guess that's yet to be seen. So the next portion, part 3 here, is going to be the depressing part at first. And then there'll be some uplifting positivity at the end. So buckle up, buy a helmet, get a helmet, take a drink, whatever you need to do to get through this next part. Remember that I love you, and I want you to be aware and smart and thoughtful. And that's what this is going to be about. So I'm going to take one more brief fiver. You won't even notice. And then we're going to talk about what happens next. All right, one more quick section here. What comes next? Well, the election's not technically over yet. They're going to be counting ballots in California for quite a while. This is the most populous state in the nation, and it's a tedious system. It takes a long time. There's a lot of double checking that goes on. There'll be a lot of double checking across the country. There'll be a lot of close races for House seats and things like that. That'll have to be double checked, sometimes recounted. The Republicans will control the White House and the Senate for sure, and maybe even the House of Representatives. Right now, that's still up in the air. There is a slim path to victory for the Dems. I don't think it's going to come true, so I wouldn't hold my hopes out for that. Nothing else worked out in our favor. Why would this? So, that's not true. That's just not true. We'll talk about that in a second. With Republicans in full control, there won't be any guardrails. Aside from the majority in the House will be really small. It will be small. It won't be more than it is now, maybe 5 or 6 seats, if that. And they are still a pretty fractured caucus. The craziest among them want to keep going further and further, while there are some sane Republicans that keep going, you're going too far, and they won't go for some things. So some of the worst shit that they're going to want to do, they won't be able to do, but a lot of it they will. Mike Johnson's already said he's going to take a swing at Obamacare if he's Speaker of the House, and I believe him, because why wouldn't they? If they kill the Affordable Care Act, tens of millions of Americans will lose health care. Everyone will see an increase in their premiums. Everyone. Pre-existing conditions, forget about it. They're going to kick you off the fucking rolls. Or your insurance is going to be so goddamn expensive. You're not going to be able to afford it. So if you've got cancer, if you have a heart condition, if you need long-term care for any serious malady, you're in trouble. For states who expanded Medicaid, you're going to lose that federal money. You're going to lose that money. It's gone. It's going to be bad. They also want to do mass deportation. Millions of people who are here undocumented, trying to feed their families, be a part of the American dream. We're going to round them up and we're going to throw them out because they've convinced themselves that this is some sort of detriment to the rest of us. It's not. It's just not. Yeah. Inflation's about to get out of control. It's going to be way worse than it was just because of the pandemic's supply chain malfunction, followed by corporate greed. Now we're going to add to that tariffs, so we're going to increase the cost of foreign goods, and we're going to deport a bunch of people who produce a whole lot of our GDP and who do a lot of low-skilled jobs that won't be done now. So farmers are going to have to pay more for hands to help them in the fields. And even if it were just minimum wage, Americans are not going to be out there 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, harvesting crops. It's not going to happen. Americans won't do it. We are, we consider ourselves a skilled workforce, even if we aren't. And facts, everything's going to be more expensive now. Your eggs, your lettuce, your beef, every slaughterhouse in the country. The Department of Justice busted an Arkansas chicken plant for employing workers under the age of 12. The cruelty is the point, and a lot of bad things are going to happen now. And so what do you do? So that was the fucking downer. And I haven't even gotten to the really bad stuff. Foreign policy is going to be an absolute tragedy. If you cared about Gaza, well, you doomed it. If you cared about Ukraine, you doomed that too. How about Taiwan? Hadn't even thought about that one. And what's next? I think Europe will hold. I think that Trump may pull us out of NATO, but I think Europe will stay together because they know that they have to. They don't have any choice. Will Putin try and flex his muscles and decide to continue his re-amalgamation of the old Soviet Union? Is he going to try to hit the Baltic states? Is he going to invade Poland? I think it's possible. I don't know that he would push his hand that far. Ukraine has not gone well, and it's going to take them time to fix that. It hasn't gone well to the point where they've brought in the North Koreans to help them out. Foreign policy is going to be disastrous. The rest of the world is screaming at us because this is going to be bad. The Supreme Court handed Donald Trump complete immunity if he's doing quote unquote official acts. Fucking okay. Thomas and Alito will retire, and we will all say yay, and they will be replaced by 40-year-old versions of themselves, and we'll start crying again. They will pack the judiciary up and down, and don't be surprised if they go the extra mile and do the unthinkable and add seats to the Supreme Court and pack it even further. They'll do it. All of those things were on the table, and our country said, yeah, that we want that. Or they didn't know enough about it, and they voted low information, no information, misinformation voters. And that brings us to, what do you do? What do you do about it? What do we do as individuals? What can we do? I was texting with my oldest daughter, Katie, who is brokenhearted, just like me. She knows that protections for trans and queer people are about to end. She knows that the police are now going to be empowered, emboldened to profile. So the Black and Latino populations of this country are in constant threat now from the very organizations that are supposed to serve and protect us. She's very wide-eyed and smart and caring and in pain. And if you're a parent, seeing your kid in pain is the worst. It's the worst feeling you can have. You want to take that pain and feel it for them, but you can't. And she's hurting, but she's also defiant. And that was what lifted me up. She said, now the hard part begins, but I'll be damned if I go down without a fight. She's right. So what do we do as individuals? We reach out to the people in our lives that are now endangered, people of color, people who are immigrants, people who are the children of immigrants, people who are queer, people who are now the targets of the government. And that's what they are. We reach out to them and we tell them that you are safe with us. I am your ally. I am your friend. We are your family. We are Americans together. No matter what. So you do that first thing. We do that before the turn of the calendar because we still can. Try to remove the poison from your life. Delete X, Twitter. Delete it. Get rid of it. It's not fucking worth it, man. It's not worth it to feed them. It's not worth it to listen to them. It's not worth it. It was used as a propaganda arm for the Republican Party and this quote unquote conservative movement, which is not conservative at all. It is a movement designed to push fascism into our lives. Don't believe me? Look up the definition and see for yourself. When all those military generals came out and said, Donald Trump is a danger, he's a fascist, that we should have listened. He's cool with all this shit that the worst members of this conservative movement are going to want to do. The cruelty is the point. Tell the people in your lives that you are their ally, that you will help them in any way that you can. And then you have to do it, by the way. You have to do it. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to act locally. I'm not going to follow the national news every day. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not. I'm going to leave that to the rest of the super engaged, because I think it's time to change tack. I may think globally, but I'm going to act locally. You know, that saying that we've used off and on. I'm going to work in my community. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to take my little red bucket and my little grabby thing so I don't have to bend over to pick up trash. And I'm going to start cleaning. I'm going to start cleaning along roadways. I'm going to start cleaning in parks. I'm just going to kind of walk around and do that. An hour here, an hour there. And I'm going to talk to the people in my community, in my neighborhood, and say, you know, hey, I care about you. And I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be nice. I don't know how many of these people are Trumpers. I don't know. I don't care. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to kill them with kindness if they need to be killed with kindness. We can't share this country if we can't get along. And the worst among them will be shown to be the worst among them. And the best among them will turn on the worst. Walk the walk while you talk the talk. Be the change that you want to see. And make your neighborhood, your cul-de-sac, your street a better place. Be a better version of you, a kinder version of you, a more accepting version of you. Try to be understanding. Don't take the pain personally, because it's not. It's not personal. Try to stand up and remember that there are young people watching you, and they want to emulate the people who treat them best. So we treat our youth like they are gold. We have to volunteer in our schools, and I've avoided doing that because, man, you put me in a room with 25 kids, I freak out. But we've got to be better. And so that's the way. This is the way. Walk the walk while you talk the talk. That's my plan, because I need to sweep up this warehouse. And while I do it, I'm going to try to tell my kids to be better versions of themselves, to always choose kindness, and to stand up when you see injustice, because that's what we're supposed to do. That's how you be a better human, which I end every podcast with, right? I always have. So what happens to this show? I'm not going to talk about politics all the time anymore, am I? Nope. I want to talk about things like this. Shared experience. That's what Trent Takes On is about. I don't need to fall off a third story landing and break both legs to know that that's a terrible idea. Someone else has already done it and shared that experience, and I don't have to do it too. Shared experience keeps us from making mistakes that are easily preventable, easily avoidable. That's what Trent Takes On is about. This message is for my kids, their kids, every kid out there, every parent out there that doesn't know what the fuck to tell your kids. You don't have to do the hard stuff. You don't have to. Most of it's been done already. Human beings have been making mistakes since the beginning of time. Sometimes we learn from them, sometimes we repeat them. But the more you learn, the less you repeat, and the better off we are. So, be a better version of you. Show a better version of you. Walk the walk, talk the talk, and be good humans. That's the least we should do. I'll be back. Because this is part of me walking the walk and talking the talk and being a better version of me. Sharing. So that other people know there are people who feel pain just like you. There are people who have empathy for your situation. There are people who understand you. Reach out to them, talk to them. Don't hurt yourself and don't hurt anyone else, because that doesn't solve anything. We'll do the best we can together. Good humans, just being good. I love you all, and I will talk to you soon.